Okay, this is the Arid house at Winterbourne Gardens, and it's been in existence since May, finished and ready for operation in May of 2008. Funded by the members of the Friends of Winterbourne, and planted out with our help from the Cactus Society. All the plants in here were donated by members. We were asked if we possibly had any ideas for the Arid house, or if possibly anybody had an odd plant for sale, or even to donate preferably to the greenhouse here. There's lots of cracking woodwork going on with the temperature outside, and they were absolutely surprised, overwhelmed with the amount of plants that were donated. All these plants in here, which you can have a quick look around, that's all the way around, they're donated all the way around. Okay, this one here was given to the gardens about half that size from my friend Arthur's greenhouse, and he has room for a lot more now. He doesn't want it back because it won't go back in there anymore. It's grown a lot bigger since, obviously, and it looks fine here. There's going to be problems when it flowers, because the flowers will go actually up 18 feet or more probably. They'll have to take out the grass probably, which is usual in botanical gardens. Anyway, it's producing lots and lots of little offsets around the bottom, which we need to perhaps take away and propagate from. That would belong to me years ago, getting a bit tall for my greenhouse, silver torch or close to cactus, and should flower for me now. Size is big enough for flower. And euphorbias, that magnificent mammillaria down here with flowers on it, has also been donated. You see, we only have sort of 6x8 greenhouses or whatever, so when our plants get a little bit big in a 6x8 greenhouse, they take too much room, so they need to be handed on somewhere else, so it's ideal to give them on to a botanical garden like this here. Just look at the magnificent spines on the top of this ferrocactus here. They are beautiful, and once they are watered, the colouring comes up far more brightly purple. Really, really lovely. This is a small one here of the giant 30-40 feet cacti in the deserts, and very, very, very slow growing, so that won't be a problem for a long, long, long time. These on the outside here in this big pot are Echinocactus grisonis. They're called, known as golden barrels, or more unkindly, mother-in-law's cushion. We think that this one's been damaged at the side there, had a bash of something, so the offsets have grown round the damage. The growing point on the top appears perhaps not to be active anymore, but all these bright yellow centres are denoting that that's active and all growing, so it looks quite splendid really. That used to belong to me in my greenhouse a number of years. Echinopsis hybrid, called Abancay, that's a place on the American map. And when I donated it, it eventually flowered, had about 36, 38 flowers along the top, that high. Looking down on the plant, you couldn't see the plant at all when it was fully in flower. Absolutely gorgeous, orangey, yellowy, pink shades. These are lovely with twists in. The Astrophytum ornatum really flowers well here. And another of the golden barrels. Sometimes these plants don't do what you'd like them to do aesthetically. They seem to branch where they want to, and it's been a bit of a problem here for us to know what to do with this one here, because it's thrown an offset at the top there, which is going to perhaps make it a bit top heavy as it's the original growing point stopped. So the only thing we think probably to do with that is to cut it off there maybe, cauterise them, dry them off, and then plant the top piece in a pot on its own to grow on up. Cut that into sections maybe, as I explained with the Ionian black cap. And then cut it perhaps down to there, and so maybe one or two where the growing points are again, as in the black cap, all the spine clusters are growing points, and hopefully one or two more will grow around the back there to make a better, aesthetically better looking group of arms on it. But then it will be cut down to that height. Obviously we'll need a few more years to grow up higher. Typical cactus, the Puntia robusta, grow up. Oops. Temperature changes. These grow like bilio, these do. They're known as the prickly pear plants. They have the fruits, prickly pears on them. Have good yellow flowers on them, or red, I'm not quite sure with this one, but have a good number of flowers on them. They grow very well if they're planted in the ground, so in future that could be a problem. Echeverias are good for sprawling along ground level and creeping along as they go, and rooting along also as they go, giving a lot of nice flower on them. That's white. Fine version of the golden barrel, so that's the white barrel. Get to about 4 feet across in diameter. Quite small flowers, about an inch only, in the area around what I call the shoulder. Just yellow flowers. This one down here also belonged to me a number of years ago. Got too big in my staging on my greenhouse. It has a treble ring of beautiful rose pink flowers. You may be able to see this flower remains there. Each head had treble ring, absolutely lovely in May. That always flowers in May almost to the week. Now this fantastic large plant here, not a cactus, it's one of the succulent plants belonging to the Euphorbia genus. Euphorbias are very, very, very diverse. They have it in their name, genus, poinsettias and spurges, and lots of garden hardy plants as well as tender greenhouse ones. Very diverse looking. In fact, this one behind here, this Euphorbia millii, that's also a euphorbia. There are also smooth globular ones like a melon, tricky ones, cordiciform ones, which means they have a big swollen root stock under the ground and small growth on top. A very, very, very diverse family. This one was actually bought and donated by the curator here, the Hale, about that high 3.5 years ago, and it's grown up to the roof, touching the woodwork, which isn't good because it'll flatten the growing point. So we needed to cut that down. We cut that down a couple of years ago. It was a similar branch to this one here, perhaps, which had branches coming out, and we cut it off, something like that. The branches we cut off as well, and let them dry off, the cut ends, and we potted them all up. They rooted eventually, and then they went into the shop for sale, so adding to the income for Winterbourne, and incidentally for our branch percentage. Cutting euphorbias is a problem, or can be a problem, because they have a sap which is milky and it runs copiously when you cut. So we learned long ago the tip of dunking the cut end into a bucket of water to help stop the flow, or at least stop the freedom of the flow. It doesn't do so much. So it's we got into the system now of when we want to cut this. Arthur, my colleague, holds the branch, I like to cut. So I get the big saw knife with great teeth on it. I get ready to cut. We have a couple of assistants at the side here, who are other members or whoever's available, with water sprays. We have a bucket of water on the floor and a big plastic mat. So when we say Arthur holds, and when he nods his head, I cut, and the milk starts to flow quickly, and then the sprayers come on and spray the whole plant, because if you leave it to run down there and solidify, it's very difficult to get off with the spray. It just sprays away. Dunk the end into the water bucket and lay it on the polythene sheet, and then go for the next one. We did that a couple of years ago. It's at the back there. I don't know if you can see that piece that was cut, and that round the top there already one or two pieces have started to grow. This one we cut fairly recently, and that will start growing around the top again. In fact, it already seems to have started some small growth there. Can you close it on that at all? Zoom in maybe, just to see a little bit of growth there. And also one down here, lower down, which was almost quite high. And we cut lots of branches off that, and those have dried off, and they are now rooting in pots pre-sale. And that biggie at the back there is almost on the glass, so a few weeks' time we shall be cutting that one as well with our tried and tested system. It's nice to know that we've sorted the system out so that we can do it quite easily. I was a little bit in trepidation when I knew we were going to have to do it for the first time, but it proved quite easy, as the stems are really not very heavy. So that was the point. One of the good points in its favour. This plant, this Euphorbia millii here, has not been out of flower in 3 years. They just keep continuing. Nasty barbs on the spines on them. It's supposed to be called, it's called the crucifixion plant, so because it's supposed to have been used at the crucifixion, but there is doubt about that because it doesn't necessarily come from the same area, and it could be ideal for the job because of the milky sap that it exudes. It is very, it's poisonous, not lethal, but it's poisonous and can give nasty pain if you get it into cuts. So it could well be that, but I've read that there's another plant has been thought of as possibly the crucifixion for the crown of thorns. One or two other nice plants around. This is not a cactus or a succulent, it's a bulbous plant, which is very interesting. It's called the shaving brush plant. Hemanthus albiflos. Quite attractive in its way. It produces lots of little offset bulbs, and yeah, nice to have. Echeverias, I do like echeverias. This is a fun one because I can take one from the back there. I can show you. Oops, there we go. Normally, Echeveria leaves are that way, like a keel on the bottom and the hollow sort of part at the top. But this one grows that way. You see the keels are on the top of the rosette and the hollows are on the underside, and it's a cultivar known as topsy-turvy. I don't know why. But very unusual, very well worth having. That's simply easy to now propagate by just drying it off for a day or two, putting it in a pot, and off it goes. I'll take that up. This again is another euphorbia. We've just explained the cutting of the big euphorbia. That is another one. They are like cacti in form, known as cactiform succulents, but not of the cactus family. Aloes are always attractive. Aloes, the state flower of South Africa. Aloe brevifolia there, small, short leaf, leaving short leaf. Another euphorbia. Another euphorbia. Nice purple stems, nice purple colour in the sunshine. And another euphorbia, cactiform, certainly with all the spines. A nice large aloe from South Africa. This does flower for us each year. One of my favourite plants, this actually was mine years ago, Kalanchoe beharensis. Lovely, velvet covered, lovely ginger brown on top and that beautiful pale grey on the top and the bottom. Never ever seen one in flower. Easy. Let's go into the middle, shall we? There's another mother-in-law's cushion there, which is oh dear. Decent size. This also was in my greenhouse many years ago. That shouldn't be on, it's a little dandelion sort of seedling or thistle. It was a lot smaller than that, of course. The little brown spots look quite attractive, but if you get them in your fingers, the little blockheads stick in your fingers and they are very, very irritating. I did hear once years ago that the old-fashioned itching powder that kids used to buy and inflict on their parents and other friends was this little sort of blockage stuff, but whether that's true or not, I don't know. Not a very nice trick to play on people to inflict that on them, but it was a lot smaller than that in my greenhouse, and it's planted out in free root rundown. It does flower with yellow flowers, very attractive. This plant here is a Cactus. It's Cactus wisliseni. Grows into a huge barrel, about 7 feet tall, probably 3 feet more across. And there's a lovely ring of yellow flowers and red fruits afterwards. Now, that's what they call hedgehog cactus. Hedgehog cactus, Echinocereus echinos hedgehog. When we planted a lot of these out into the greenhouse, they didn't do too well, and you see maybe the darker colouring there, which is the poor growth that it went to when it came planted here. But it seems to have settled down now, and the growth is pretty good. Now this pretty awful looking thing up here, not a very interesting looking thing, but if you know what it is, it's called Queen of the Night. And my golly does it have a superb flower, and quite a fascinating one, because Queen of the Night is a good name for it, because when the flowers come on, the buds take a long time to develop, but they get to about 12 inches long, and then the petals are in a point close together at the end there, and when they start to just part at the end, you think, it's going to flower very shortly. So then you start watching. It takes weeks and weeks to do that, and then you can look at it each day maybe, and if it starts to open a little bit more, and then you think, it's going to be tonight, tonight's the night, one performance only, one night only each bud opens. So it opens between 6 and 7 in the evening, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, midnight. It's fully open, 9.5 inches long across, and fabulous perfume, absolutely glorious, in white in the centre, then to shades of cream, yellow, and then a cinnamony brown coloured sepals around the outside. Fantastic. The perfume attracts in nature bats and moths and any night flying insects or whatever to go for the nectar, which is copious, and they obviously get the pollen on their heads and they go to the next flower and transfer the pollen, but each flower one night only. The first time I had one in flower, first time I had one growing to flower in my greenhouse, it had 4 flower buds on, and I thought, right, I'm going to get 4 nights of flowers, they all opened the same evening. So I had one show only of 4 flowers, which was great. They are fantastic. Down here, this is a beautifully coloured one, Echinocereus Reichenbachii, It's known as the rainbow cactus because of the sort of nice bands of colour that it has on them. And it flowers with a lovely pale violety purple. Very, very nice indeed. Okay, I think that's this tall one, of course, is one of the 30-40 footers, Cactus Pringlei, 30-40 footers from Arizona. Slower growing, but I looked at an early photograph a few days ago, and I got a photograph that was as tall as me, 6 foot. And so it's grown that in 3 years. So imagine the growth that it's going to make in the future, and then it's going to be a bit more difficult to cut down than that euphorbia that we saw earlier. Some of the aloes again, another aloe here which is absolutely lovely, aloe brownii, which is a gorgeous rosette and so regular to look into. I think it's absolute work of art, absolutely beautiful. I have 2 of those in my greenhouse now. They're 4 inches across, and if they're going to grow that big, they're going to come down here as well. Don't really want anything growing quite as big as that in my 17 by 8 greenhouse. Now, one of the succulents here, little Crashula volkensis, so beautiful in the sunshine. Get that lovely colouring on them. If it's not sunny enough, they remain a greeny colour like in the centre there. And it has little white star flowers covered over with it. It's most attractive. So I think that's more or less a little tour around the Arid house. And we've got one more up here. I can show you if I can reach up to it without getting damaged. Hanging basket there with a succulent called a Ceropegia stapeliformis, and the flowers I think are absolutely gorgeous. Most Ceropegia flowers, the spikes at the top, for want of a better word, normally join together like that, but for some reason or other that species they go outwards, they splay outwards. But I do think it's a lovely flower. Just give you a size of it by putting my fingers up there. Yeah. And it will continue to trail and hang downwards and hopefully have lots more flowers on. Now, for instance, look, we've just looked at a lovely Crashula volkensis. Now, that's the same in that pot around the base of the plant. But that's green. That's not been up there too long, so once the sunshine gets going on that, that will turn purple. And look quite good, hopefully. Okay, so I think that's a decent little look around the greenhouse at Winterbourne House and Garden, belonging to Birmingham University.